on behalf of the National Arts Action Summit, let's begin. I'll hand it over to Carla Canales, world-renowned opera singer and founder of the Canales Project, to start us off for facts and figures to make the case for the arts. Carla?
Thank you so much, Lauren, and good morning, everyone. It is really an honor for me to be here. I love my AFTA family dearly and have learned so much from them, so thank you for having me. I'm going to dive right in because I have a lot to say. And as we go along, if you have questions, I invite you to put them in the chat. And once I get through my remarks, I'd love to be able to answer those questions. I also invite you to reach out to me if there are any questions you have afterward. My email is simply carlacanales@gmail.com. It's pretty easy. So I hope that we can be in touch. All right. Well, a few months ago, I came across a fact that changed my life. Last November, the G20 convened its first ever meeting of its cultural ministers. Some of you might be thinking, okay, why would an American opera singer even care about what the G20 is doing? Well, as an artist and as a citizen, I care deeply about culture. In creating this ministerial track on culture, the G20 showed it cares too, because they have seen the power of culture. This is what I want to talk to you about today, the power of culture. Collectively, we as artists, arts administrators, supporters of the arts, and as Americans can put that power to good use. And along with the intrinsic beauty of the arts, important statistics and facts regarding the current state of affairs can help us to accomplish that goal. In my case, I first learned about the power of culture at home. As a kid, I grew up mesmerized by the Spanish gypsy Carmen. It's no wonder that Carmen was my favorite game to play. I would dress one brother up as a bull and the other as the bullfighter. And of course, I would play Carmen, waving my fake castanets in the air and dancing around in my mother's skirts. That music and that character wielded this power over me that ultimately ended up defining my life. But as you can imagine from this unusual description, my upbringing was quite strange and unusual. Instead of going to football games on Friday nights, I grew up listening to operas and eating taquitos and tortas. This was my unique life as a firstborn American, the daughter of a Bulgarian father and a Mexican mother growing up in Michigan. As a child of coincidence rather than globalization, I had these two vastly different cultures to learn about, and of course, a new one to assimilate to. I felt I was a hybrid, born into this state of cultural confusion, and the only way to survive would be to become a chameleon and learn to adapt to all of them. So you see, my passion for culture was really born out of necessity. It's defined my life and impacted my everyday thinking. I guess I constantly analyze culture through the lens of these three different identities that I'm constantly juggling, and of course, their languages as well. But even as a kid, I was keenly aware that words are just words. Intention is harder to translate, as is emotion. And some things just can't be put into any words because they can't be translated. These are things of the soul, and I think they're best communicated through music. As a professional opera singer, I got to perform with companies around the world, with each cast made up of different singers from different countries. The role I ended up playing most often, Carmen, is itself something of a study in the power of culture to bridge borders. It is, after all, the story of a gypsy living in Spain, written by a Frenchman featuring this very famous aria, the habanera, which is based on a Cuban song. And it first achieves its success at a performance in Vienna, Austria. So I guess as much as I enjoy singing, I realize that what I'm really seeking is connection. Specifically, I'm looking for ways to connect as humans with what we all have in common, the human condition. Often we think of artists as entertainers, but I believe we can be more. I know that we can be healers and we can be educators, and we can even be advocates. Which brings me back to the G20. If the G20, an important international group of government officials collaborating towards this goal of international financial security, if they have seen the importance in recognizing the cultural sector, this means they understand the power of the arts, as they should. Well, aside from the moral arguments for this, there are many statistics that I could make for this compelling argument. In country after country around the world, creative industries account for 2 to 7% of GDP. UNESCO estimates the annual revenue from the cultural and creative sectors to be $2.25 trillion, of course. And some estimates, this one really blows my mind. Some estimates suggest the sector will soon be responsible for 1/10 of all global output. And yet, despite the fact that the United States is an important member of the G20, we have no minister of culture to send to these discussions. This position in the United States simply does not exist. So let me give you a sense of how important this role is domestically. If it existed, this position would be responsible for almost 9 million jobs, accountable for a higher percentage of US gross domestic product than the entire agriculture sector. It would be a role that would speak for millions of Americans who are among the hardest hit by the current economic crisis, myself included. There are nearly 3 million jobs that have been lost, according to a study late last year from the Brookings Institute. And to further put this into perspective, thanks again to the power of statistics, the National Endowment for the Arts budget, despite efforts by the Trump administration to kill it, is roughly $170 million. And that, my friends, is less than one fully equipped F-22 aircraft. And so this simple headline about the G20 meeting of cultural ministers changed my trajectory. The statistic led me to Harvard University, where as an advanced leadership initiative fellow, I am currently seeking ways to harness the power of culture to help solve emerging global challenges. My background is someone with multiple identities, and as an opera singer, traveling and working with different cohorts and casts has led me to understand firsthand the importance of culture to build bridges, specifically through cultural diplomacy. I'm excited to be inaugurating a series of discussions that sets out to bring together policymakers and artists, academics, and world leaders to further explore this potential of cultural diplomacy. That's an initiative I'm starting today, and I invite you to join me on that journey. By sharing facts and statistics that speak to the mind with culture and beauty that speak to the heart, I know we can find new ways to collaborate and utilize the power of culture to better our society. My inspiration for this comes from my AFTA family, an organization I've always called home, and one that taught me that anything is possible and that the power of the arts should never be underestimated. And finally, as an artist, I've often heard people speak of music as the universal language, but I guess I see this differently. I believe we share an emotional universe that transcends language and reveals the fundamental traits of humanity. We each have the capacity to feel deep emotions, and it's this capacity that makes us human. The arts offer exploration of deep emotional complexities that come with our shared human condition. But even beyond that, the real superpower of the arts is to serve as a gateway to something even more powerful, and that is the human capacity to imagine. It's when we unleash our imagination and dreams and magic can happen. Culture and the arts, viewed by many as a luxury, are, in my view, essential. They're the glue that holds societies together, the stuff of which bridges are built, the platform on which we can jointly imagine and realize our visions of a better future. It's why I hold precious and a core belief that music can advance positive change. And it's why a single song and a single statistic can make the world a better place by imagining a better future and uniting us with an underlying sense of our common humanity, which reminds us we are all in this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carla. Your insight is so valuable, and we're really grateful for your time this morning.